Could it be?
Guys, welcome back to another episode of the Strongfit Podcast. Before we get started, make sure to rate us 5 stars on iTunes, subscribe on iTunes and Spotify and YouTube, and comment and like and share, and just share the love, guys. That was Alex making me do this. I just wanted to get it in quickly.
If we're still on YouTube by then.
Yeah.
It's not obvious.
Let's get rocking. Today we're going to be talking on lactate levels and possible correlation. Again, we go through phases.
Well, yeah, because right now we're doing all the case studies, so might as well keep everybody informed. Because honestly, this year is going to be like creating the anxiety protocol for me.
Yeah.
Anxiety depression protocol. And it's really, what we talked about, like the free energy training principle, like how training as behavior.
Right.
More than anything else.
That's
really what I'm going to do this year.
We should send that little clip to Carl first.
Yeah, that'd be cool, actually. That's still my dream in life.
Yeah.
Is to just shake his hand one day. That'd be cool. Yeah.
So some cool things that you saw, some cool things that I saw with Tyrone, with what's going on with his fight world as well.
Yeah.
But now you talking about it, I could see the correlation definitely with his lactate levels and training.
Exactly. So it was interesting.
And inflammation.
Right,
as well.
Which is interesting, but that I think is, it's the body fighting back. I think at this stage, I think it's an overly sympathetic response. Because lactate actually is an anti-inflammatory, so that tells you probably how high he is. Or he might be coming from higher or shit like that.
Right.
So that's a little bit the point of today. So there's a mistake made as thinking that lactate is a measure of acidity, or lactate is... because there's something called lactic acidosis, right? So for the longest time, they have equated lactate and acidity.
Yeah.
And it's not true, like one does not cause the other. There's a correlation between the two, but one does not cause the other. So what happens is when the body needs fuel and energy, it uses glycolysis. So glycolysis is turning glucose into lactate, not into pyruvate. The end product of glycolysis is lactate. As you produce lactate, you're going to produce ADP as well. ATP, as well. And ATP is a measure of energy. So you can tell that the amount of fuel that you create as lactate, that's going to fuel the body and the muscles and the brain, is in correlation with the amount of ATP that you produce.
Right.
Because they're both being produced by the same reaction, which is glycolysis.
Right.
So you have lactate that goes as a fuel. Again, it can be, it's produced by the red blood cells, by the muscles, all that stuff. And it's going to be used by the brain, by the heart, by the muscles of the body. So as the lactate go up, obviously, ATP goes up. They go together. Right. So ATP is just a measure of energy. It's like a battery full of energy. But to use it, you need to extract the energy out of it. When you extract the energy out of it, what you do is you turn the ATP into ADP and a proton.
Okay.
But, it's just the way this works, right? So that proton will raise the acidity of your body. There's many things in play here that will raise the acidity of your body, but that's one of them. So you could see that as glycolysis goes on and ATP is being produced, the more ATP you use, the higher the acidity of the body.
Right. Yeah.
So, but again, the more ATP you have, the higher the lactate level, because they're produced by the same thing. So that means that the higher level the lactate, the higher the acidity of the body.
Yeah.
But lactate does not cause acidity. They just happen to raise...
Not causation.
Right, exactly. Not causation, correlation.
Yeah.
They happen to raise together. That does not mean causation.
Oh, no.
And actually, if anything, lactate allows, because it's an anion, it's a minus, it actually eats away some protons. It's not like that, but it acts as a buffer against that acidity.
Right.
So lactate is actually helping you not becoming too acidic. If you keep producing energy in massive amounts, obviously the body is going to reach a certain level of acidity. And at that 20, then you're fucked, because your pH level starts to drop so much, it's actually very dangerous for you.
Right.
It's probably the number one thing the body freaks out about is acidity.
Yeah.
It can fry your brain, it can fry your body organ, like it's actually very, very dangerous. Causes like, electrical imbalances, shit like that.
Right.
Like it's that dangerous.
Yeah. Pause for 1 second.
Yeah. So we see the correlation lactate and acidity. So that's going to create eventually a problem, because that acidity, the body is going to fight really hard to get rid of.
Right.
It's the number one thing. So we talk about homeostasis, the body wanting to go toward the center. Acidity is going to be a major red flag for the body, going like, we don't want that. So that means that anytime you create energy, you're doing it at a cost.
Right.
But your body is going to try really hard to reverse the action. Reversing the action is getting the energy back in and the proton so that the ADP gets turned back into ATP.
Right.
And therefore, the acidity goes down and pH level goes back up. So there's a lot of fight like this. So you could see that high levels of lactate, not that lactate causes the problem, but high levels of lactate indicates that the body is in a creation of energy mode.
Right.
And usage of energy mode at the cost, unfortunately, of acidity.
Right.
So there's no free lunch on that one. Okay. Yep.
So from there, how do you start to relate that towards behavior and free energy model?
Turns out there's two ways to produce lactate. There is exercise, where you actually do something. So you're on a treadmill, you start lifting, your body's like, shit, I need energy, and starts to go to our glycolysis. But turns out that's not the only way the body reacts. There's something called behavioral stress, which really means mental stress in that sense of stress created by the mind. What do they mean by that? Stress is just the demand of energy.
Right.
That's all. It's a demand for production of energy. That's really what stress means. So that means that a demand for glycolysis in that sense. So behavioral stress is a demand for glycolysis. Therefore, the levels of lactate will be an indication of the behavioral stress.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Simple, right? And so that's what we see in a case study that, for example, we did with Nicole, is that we saw levels of lactate rising at night.
Yeah.
Therefore, without exercises. She had levels of lactate in the morning without training or anything, without barely doing anything, rising. Why? Because, and then we tested that time and time and time again, because you thinking a fight is coming is enough to raise the levels of lactate.
Right.
And this is the part that they will miss, because if you think the body is reactive, then that makes no sense.
Yeah.
But if the body is predictive, it makes all sense in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so that's what we saw with all the studies we did. For example, like our past study, people were 5 minutes before the test had a higher level of lactate than when they started. So her mentor told her it was a glitch. It wasn't a glitch. People were nervous about being tested, about being judged, all that stuff. And that was enough to see. So I saw a number of my clients where, for example, for Nicole, it's more the fear of failing in front of people. Others is going to be being judged, like depending on where your anxiety comes from. But when you are faced with that situation, there is a challenging of the me that happens.
Right.
And that shoots the levels of lactate up. So why? Because we talked about this in other podcasts. The brain is what uses the most energy out of the body. It's 2% of the mass and uses 20% of the energy produced. So it's a huge consumer of energy, like the diva brain.
Yeah.
Right. Out of that, you have the big networks. For example, the default mode network that uses the most energy out of all the stuff of the brain.
Yeah.
And out of that, for example, the me in the default mode network is what uses the most energy out of that. Right. So you can tell that conception of me requires a shit ton of energy. So when the me is challenged, and again, evolutionarily speaking, a challenge socially or a challenge physically is still seen the same by the brain. Right. Because we haven't evolved into a society long enough, it seems.
Yeah.
We take it the same way, which means whenever there's a social challenge of the me, the level of energy are the same as if you were doing a certain form of exercise.
Right.
Imagine if you're around 10 people that you don't know that surround you.
Yeah.
You'll feel like a lion surrounded by hyenas. You'll start to go,
what's happening?
Like even in a crowd where you know you're safe, doesn't matter. There's a part of it that goes whoop. So that means the amount of energy. Why? Because there might be an aggression coming, regardless of whether it's social or physical, is still the same. So then the levels of energy go up. Therefore, the levels of lactate go up.
Right.
So you could see how the lactate would be a measure of behavioral stress. In that sense, either of physical stress, but also behavioral stress. Exactly what we saw with Nicole, who woke up at 22 one morning because in her dreams, go figure what happened.
Right.
But that was enough. Yeah. So see, it's not physical. It's that aspect is just what they call behavioral, so the mental aspect.
Right.
So that kind of brings an interesting point that I was thinking about, is like that means that your levels of lactate at rest in the morning indicate how you see the world at that moment.
Right.
Because it's not the physical. Obviously, you just woke up, you're chill, you're at home. So it's how you are, what is your state of mind, fighting-wise.
Right.
Are you in a stressed out state because of whatever? That's going to be indicated by your lactate levels.
Right. And I think that, it, again, like for you, when we did the lactate test with Yaya,
yes,
like, that again shows like that that mental side is so, that predictive side
is so important. Yeah. So that brings the question, maybe the level of lactate is a measure of the prediction.
Right.
Because we all took it as measure of the observation. And sometimes physically can be that as well, but it can also be a measure of the prediction.
For sure.
At least
how you're seeing the world.
From pure, like practical perspective.
Yeah.
I wake up in the morning, I'm supposed to be normal 1 and 2. I'm like, all right, so maybe I can do this. But what happens if I wake up at 6?
Right.
That means I'm in that fight mode. What happens if I'm supposed to have a day off today and I wake up at 6?
Right.
So, because that was my point I was trying to make with one of my clients. Like, is that a day off then? If you walk around at 6, is that a day off?
Mentally, it's not.
Mentally, but even physically. Like a 6 is the equivalent of you going on a 200-meter run. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're starting to move. Like I had a number of clients where they were at 6 after a very hard workout. Within 10 minutes, they were still at 6, just to give you an idea. So that means that you walk around at the energy level of a hard workout all day. So you can't be rested mentally, you can't be rested physically. Like the glycolysis is pumping. So you're asking all your entire system to do a lot of work.
And do you think that higher, like I think my lactate levels would be super high, like a lot higher right now, mainly because of lack of sleep, right? Because
you're like, all right.
Yeah. So you
have to take care of the baby. And So it's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be, it's not necessarily, it's never a bad thing anyway. It's just where you are. It's like, I need to do this. Right. And if you feel you need to be alert all day, then naturally your lactate levels will be higher at the price of acidity, by the way. So eventually your body will be like, are you sure?
Right.
Because that's dangerous. And so you're going to have that question, are you sure? Are you sure? And as long as your why is stronger than are you sure, you know to push forward. But then, that's why that are you sure the question keeps coming back over and over again because your body is like, all right, then we need to know for sure. That would explain why those people are always questioning themselves.
Right.
Because their levels of lactate are so high, the body is like, are you sure?
Right.
Because this is an issue.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Teron, for example. So he shows up here and he's at 6.
Yeah.
Right. So Teron, people have to understand, the poor guy has his fight canceled.
Since September of 2020. Has not canceled. He's had his fight moved. 3 to 4 weeks since September 2020. So we're talking, 10 months now?
Yeah.
8 months? 10 months?
9 months.
So imagine being on high season, like getting ready to go to a fight.
So where someone is trying to take your head off. Yeah.
For the last 9 months.
And by 4 weeks, which is mean, because that's peaking.
Yeah.
So you've been trying to peak for 9 months.
Yeah.
So at some point, you wake up in the morning and it's right. So
the last 2 months.
He's a chill guy, by the way.
Yeah, very relaxed, very mellow. But the last 2 months, I've noticed a lot of inflammation. So hands are, like you see the hands and they're just swollen. The knees are getting hurt. The joints are getting super achy. And then, anxiety levels are starting to go higher and higher and higher, especially because the last month he had his fighter backed out, new fighter came in, fighter broke the hand, fighter backed out, new fighter came in, fighter backed out, they found one more fighter, and then it was a week before the fight, they're like, oh, we're looking for another opponent because this one backed out too because he had a cough. Yeah. So 6 different opponents.
Yeah, in 2 months.
And in the last 5 weeks. Yeah. It's ridiculous. And so, of course, levels are super high, and you just want to get in the ring. He's like I remember having the conversation after his 3rd fight changed, and I was like, why don't you just cancel? He goes, no, I just want to get in the ring, just fight.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, that starts to come out in the training, in the sparring, because now you want to spar harder because you're peaking, so you just want to not sabotage, but you just want to fight.
No, you just want to fight, yeah.
And so he came in, and his lactate levels were at 6.9 early in the morning, 10 o'clock in the morning.
And again, this is a chill guy. Like we have not measured at rest before, but I would think he's between 1 and 2. He's a very chill guy.
No, but we did Sunday. We did the steady cardio, Disney December, and by the time he was leaving here, he was at 1.9.
Right. So, and that would be my point. If I would want someone to have a day off and they wake up at 7. Then we could do Disney December to get them at 2 so that they can have a day off. Because if you look, what is the steady cardio, the Q-1? What is Disney December if not a teaching tool to be at 2?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like again, behavior as training, not training as behavior, or both, right? But what if December is actually to teach you to be at 2?
Yeah.
So that will explain why you crash depressed people.
Yeah.
Because the last thing they need
is to go lower.
They need to go higher, not lower, right?
Yeah.
And so, but what Disney December teaches you is how to not get your mind like this and be at 2. By the way, for some people, 2 seems to be too low.
Right.
Because they're not there yet. So Q-1 is a bit higher, but
Yeah.
I'll get to that. But in the meantime, Disney December just would teach you to be at 2. So you come in, you have to have a day off. Then maybe it's a great idea and you're at 7, we'll make you do Disney December. Now you're at 2, now you can have a day off.
Well,
before you didn't.
I have the fighters that are starting to finally listen to podcasts and listen to some of the things. Yeah, so I'm like, it's your day off. And they're like, well, full rest. I was like, go do Disney December the night before, the morning, just so you can.
And I think the morning will do well.
And of course, it's been a few months. And I was like, hey, I listened to that Disney December. I want to start doing it. And I was like, I've been telling you to do it for 7 months.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it works, right? But imagine that if we were to take the levels of lactate every morning. And so let's say I wake up and I'm at 4, even if I'm at 7, and today is not a day off, today I feel like I want to train. Okay, so not Disney December, but at least in that case, maybe the Q-1 steady cardio would be better to at least address the behavior of you spiking too much.
Right.
Because the 7 in the morning tells me what? Tells me you're in a fight mode, even when there is no reason to be, in the sense that you're not in the fight. So people will go, oh, it's not that big of a deal. It is, because then there's a difference between prediction and observation. That's called a somatic error. That dysregulates the entire system, and eventually you start crashing.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So Tyrone being an extreme case, obviously, because poor dude, it's a horrible situation. But for your average people, if you wake up with a high level of lactate in the morning, so either day off, Disney December, if you're too high, but we could also do just a steady cardio Q-1 at freak out. So Q is for quit, freak out just below that. And we keep you there, which I've been doing a lot, just so that you learn not to let your mind spike.
Right.
So I had that with 2 very, on the, could be on the anxious side, like 2 very women that are very on the intense side.
They're very busy bodies.
They're very intense.
On the best of ways. They're very,
the best of ways, but they're
active.
very intense. Yes, they're very active, very intense. And what was interesting is I put them on the Q-1, right? So it can be heart rate 160, 170. It can be usually we go on RPM. For both of them, it was around 50 on the airdyne.
Yeah.
One is 52, the other one is 50. And within, at first, it's fine. And within 7-8 minutes, you can tell that the mind starts to take off.
Yeah.
It's not physically, because they are fit enough to stay, but the mind just cannot take it.
Right.
The mind cannot take 10 minutes of not going all over the fucking place, like starting to and they always go toward the future.
Yeah.
Which I find there's something there that is very interesting.
That's when we were talking about remember we used to talk about the id and the ego, and you're like, the ego is always trying to look towards the future to sabotage.
Yeah, there's something there.
Yeah.
So every single time, their spike is I need to do this after, I need to go home, I need to clean, I need to, whatever.
Right.
But it's future. And so they start spiking like crazy. And the whole point of the Q-1 is, no.
Be here.
And so they can't do it too long, but the key is that behavior of, no, match, so maximize the somatic error, match the prediction and the observation.
Right.
The airdyne is asking you for 50 or 52, not 65, 50. You're giving me an effort worth 65 when your body is asking you 50. So the mind and the body are not connected. And so there's that spike that happens, and that's the whole thing is bring yourself down. Stay here, be present. Don't be in the future, be present. And then once they do that, and usually their one fear is to not know when to stop. If you give them the validation of 5 more minutes, then they're fine. It's very interesting.
Right.
But so they go there, and then it happened then you have the Q+1 at 12 minutes, you stop, you do 1 more minute, and usually when that happens, they calm down because then they bring back their energy level to what is necessary for a 50 or 52, which is not that high.
Right.
But then they have learned not to spike the prediction, to match prediction or observation. So that could be 2 ways of dealing with high levels of lactate in the morning, but that's because a day where you take a day off is not the same where the day where you're going to train. So you see what I mean?
It starts to change, yeah.
Right, it starts to change. So I'm starting to look at lactate at rest in the morning as a measure of the prediction and how we're going to adapt the training for the day.
Right.
What's very interesting with the Q-1 is an anxious will take it from the top, while a depressed will take it from the bottom, which is more like, no, we said 50.
Yeah.
Stop dropping down and trying to do the littlest amount you can. Start giving me 50, but it's another somatic error.
Right, and I think that's for me, I start to see different variations of this, right? So we look at the anxious person where we need to bring them down and be present. Yeah. There's also people that are very much on the busy body side or very active side, but are still more towards the freeze.
They're actually depressed. Right?
And so in order to bring them up, just because they seem busy, and this is something where I see people, and Day and I will have arguments because we watch documentaries or something. I'm like, that person's depressed, or not trying to label that's wrong.
But freeze.
Freeze or more towards the anxious side.
You know what freeze is.
And she's like, no, can't you see? And I was like, it's not
they're
a pretend.
They're using words, but that's not.
But it's not the same thing. And so for somebody, again, going back to J Balvin, shout out to J Balvin. When he explains this entire anxiety and depression, he's somebody that should not be doing meditation or Disney December in the morning, because he's out of body, right? So the body's an object now. It's no longer anxiety. It's a full freeze. So that's somebody that needs to be brought up.
And we had that with a client who had thought she was on the anxious side, and yet could not even score on
Burn
the
the question.
lactate
She couldn't get 2.
Yeah, she got like a 2.3 right after Burn the Question, which it's lacking a 0 somewhere. In there.
That's crazy. Yeah.
Right, but she was below 1 waking up in the morning. What does that tell you? That you're on the free side, not the anxious side. So if you don't like it, so that means that prediction versus observation, like I don't have the energy to do stuff.
Right.
So that puts you on the free, not the anxious. So you might hate that, and that makes you angry, but probably angry so you can have energy to do something. That still puts you on the free side. That still puts you on the depressed side.
Right.
So that would be another type of depression, that anxious depression, but not the one where you go up and you crash. Is you trying to go up to make up for the fact that you just cannot produce the energy required for your day because you're on the free side. So no Disney December, no meditation, none of that. It's lift weight, interval training.
Heavy and hard,
Burn the questions, always. No yoga.
Right.
I saw that on the sheet. Yoga, crash the next day.
Yeah.
No meditation, no yoga, nothing that takes you that route.
Right.
Go up, not down. But what I liked about that is the lactate levels. I was like, you see what that says? And they go, oh.
Right.
Because now it's not in their head. And it's not in your head. That's what the stuff I want to show with all this is prediction versus observation. Means your body is part of this. Like you feeling like shit. You're not feeling like shit because you're shit in your head. You feel like shit because your body is telling you something.
Right.
That is so imbalanced that that's what feels like shit.
Yeah.
So you actually feel like shit. It's not in your head.
Yeah.
You feel like shit. There's a reason. If there's a reason, we can do something about it.
For sure.
And that's needed, Nicole was so happy in a weird way when she saw 23. Because she was like,
now I get it.
It's not in my head. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like it's in my body too. It's not a creation. Or if it is a creation, it happens in your body as well. So that split of the mind and the body is where I think a lot of the problem happens, because then people, if you split them like that, then the body becomes an object, which furthers the problem.
Which is a kind of a dangerous thing to do.
It's a very dangerous thing to do. And by the way, welcome to eating disorders. All eating disorders start with body as an object.
Right.
So, and then I had a guy who was another problem, and it started as body as an object.
Right.
The dude that was, it starts as body as an object.
I mean, the solution. So, let me go at it this way. The brain brings up the lactate levels, or the body can bring up the lactate levels, and it's up to us to figure out the reactions to stress as well, right?
So or maybe the prediction is always what brings up the lactate level if everything is predictive. But one is the system reacting to the world, and the other one is the system reacting to a conception of something. I'm being challenged.
Yeah.
Right, but that's your perception.
So one is
of
the
it.
perception, and one is the reality.
In the way, exactly. Yeah. Well, which is very interesting, because if you look at the difference between the burn the question and then the 6 sets, is that because we have the Q-1 cardio.
Yeah.
We have Disney December. Okay, but what about lifting? So lately I've been doing there's 2 types of lifting. You have burn the questions and you have the 6 sets I've been doing.
Right.
What's the difference between the two? So first of all, let me explain the difference and then I explain why the 6 sets, right? The burner question is what? The burner question represents what do you want out of yourself in this world? What do you want for yourself out of yourself?
Yeah.
There's one set, you die halfway, and you have to be able to say no.
Right.
Because the world will not impact who I am.
Yeah.
That's a different form of the ego in a Freud type of sense. It's like a definition of your identity.
Right.
That's why I can murder that, is because there is nothing you can do that will stop me from being who I want.
Right.
I know that. Like there is no physical impact that can change my vision of this.
Yeah.
Right? But that's so it's who do I want to be? The six sets is how do I deal with the world?
Right.
Which is not the same. Right? You can know exactly who you want to be and not being able to deal with the world, expressing it. It's not the same. Right. So when we get to the six sets, what I find fascinating with that is the same idea as the Q-1 cardio. So I'm doing 6 sets with Janina. We're doing sumos.
Yeah.
First 2 sets, as usual, interestingly, it's more neural output. It's you lift because you like it.
Yeah.
You know, it's heavy, you like it, you go like this. Then set 3 and 4, I'm starting to muscle my way through. Right. It's always the same. And by the way, I can't tell you if I did 3 sets or 4 sets. As usual. Every single time, regardless of exercise. I did that with the bicep curls.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you if it was 3 or 4. I'm like, motherfucker. It's a weirdest thing. And then you get 5 and 6. Sets 5 and 6 is when the skill comes in. So performance box, by the way, neural output, muscle capacity, skill. I find it very interesting. But this is where actually I focus the most on the exercise. Because now I've lost I lift because I like it. I've loved the muscling, make sure now I'm just doing the exercise.
Right.
So now I'm actually earning it. Because I'm focusing on the technique, feeling the muscle correctly. The emotional side is almost gone. So now I'm really earning my way. So that's working very, very well with all my clients. It's a Q-1, but total lifting.
Yeah.
What's interesting is the break in between each set. Janina is taking it let's go, come on, bitch. Let's do one more, So she's in between sets. And when we reach 3 and 4, she cannot stop thinking about what she has to do after. You can tell she's like this, like this, like this. Like she can't stop herself. And here comes the challenge of the me.
Right.
When she's like, well, I need to do something after. And you can tell it's starting to touch her and all that stuff. Whereas me, on the opposite side, more going like, dude, come on, like pay attention. You have to take less time. Because I would take 6 minutes in between. But then it's not the...
So maybe that's why remember the death by Imam? If you look at it, it was always at minute 12, which means that all exercises went through 6 sets. Minute 12 to 18 is when everything became relaxed and zoned in.
And then the world is a lot more quiet. Mm-hmm. But so you'll see the anxious side wanting to take less rest and just losing it on the future. Like, how many sets do we have to do? What if I go to 15? What if? And then the depressed side will be like, oh yeah, right, it's time to go. Oh, sorry, I didn't pay attention.
Right. Yeah.
Kind of tough because they're losing themselves into not wanting to go there, where the anxious cannot wait to go there. So therefore, they're in the future and they lose it completely, but from opposite side. So at the end, it teaches behavior the same way, but from opposite side. And so anxious and depressed will have a different way of dealing with it, but they both learning what to deal with the world.
Right.
Because the world is, you have another set. Yeah. Go do it. Okay, so do you approach it like, okay, cool. Or do you approach it like, okay.
Right.
And so we ended up doing a great workout, but for opposite reasons almost.
Yeah.
I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah, I like it. So based on reactions to stress and the drivers, which we've talked about for a long time, right?
Yeah,
is going to be how...
And so me, it's kicking my own ass in between sets. Like, hey, be present, because otherwise I drift off.
Right.
But it's like I can remember between 3 and 4. That means I'm going toward freeze. I'm gone. And what I'm learning to do is like, no, stay here. You're in the gym. Come on. But whereas with Jen, I have to do the opposite. It's like, relax. It's not after. It's now.
Yeah.
But not from a boredom perspective. From be present. But don't let your mind go all over the place. Like I want to do too much. I want to do this. I want to do that. No. Stop the erratic behavior and calm down. And that overdoing behavior. But me, I'd be underdoing it.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean? And so that's a completely different behavior. And so that's what I realized, my hardest thing is not dealing with myself, it's dealing with the world.
Right.
So I can, the 4, 5, 6 sets is hard because now it's not just me, it's me and the world, because I got to go lift the stuff. And I'm like, but I did the first 3 sets. I'm good. I got the neural output out.
Yeah.
I'm
the
good.
Still feels good.
Right. I feel
The
good.
felt good.
I got a good pump. I'm out. And it's so hard for me mentally for me to come back from that feeling. We're like, that was good. I got a good pump. Why am I doing more work? Let me do another exercise.
Right.
So instead of doing 1 set and do 6 reps, 6 sets or whatever, I would do 2 exercises or 3 exercises of 2 sets. But then it's all neural output, and then I get home and I feel like the muscle didn't earn the work.
Right. Okay.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because all I did was neural output. Yeah, I love lifting. And so I'm like you almost lifting out of emotion.
Right.
But never truly learning the movement, never truly using the muscle, because I never did set 3, 4, 5, 6. I just do 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I change the exercise to
then
get
you get
excited.
home, you feel like you should have done more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I didn't.
Yeah. Right.
I did 6 sets, but of nothing.
Right.
Because I never did 5 and 6 sets.
Right.
I just did 2 sets, 3 times.
Yeah.
So I got out of excitement, out of loving to lift, or you build the stuff, like me get strong at this. Yeah, but you're not getting stronger because you're not earning the work.
Right.
So then I can burn the questions, but I can't do volume, which is me 100%.
Yeah.
I can kill 2 sets and then volume because I never spend the time doing the volume. Yeah, because it's like, do the fucking work. The only thing I've ever done it is on my back, which is probably why it's so big. Because it's like that I could do. Probably because I couldn't see it in the mirror, I couldn't get excited about it, whatever it was. And I was doing 5 sets and 6 sets, and I was like, yeah, I like it, whatever. The rest is like, well, and then, but I'm going to get overtrained. Here comes the excuses. I'm going to overtrain if I do more than 2 sets, and then, I don't feel the pump anymore.
Well, now
I feel
we can use LACTATE as the
work.
ability to check if we're overtraining or not, right?
That too.
I mean,
exactly.
I mean, now you're able to see if the lactate levels are up, whether it's mental or physical, it's going to show.
It's going to show.
So it'll show you what type of training. So
exactly.
I feel like it's going back to the original, the task-oriented until you quit. Remember when we used to do
exactly. So which one is better?
Is 6 sets.
Exactly.
And until you quit will be like the Q minus 1, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Burn the questions.
And so depending on where you are, some should do AMRAPs, others should do imams.
Yeah.
Based on where they are. Because imam, they don't know when to stop. It's going to be harder for them. But again, why are we doing it this way? Because it's about behavior.
Right.
Because suddenly, if with all my clients, what they all love the most is that they don't come to lift anymore. They come to become better at life.
Right.
They come to lift so that their behavior outside of the gym is what they want. So they come to lift to be who they want to be.
Right. Which is what training should be. Yeah.
That's a powerful weapon. Because now I can do cardio.
Right.
Because it's not about cardio. It's about finding that voice that tells me quit and not do that.
Right.
I can do this all day. Mentally, I'm like, I hunt that voice. Please tell me to quit. Usually I find it on Burn the Question. But then I realized that was the same voice on the volume. I just didn't like that one.
Right. So then question for you, is there, and I think with everything that we've come up with Strongfit, the underlying or the silver lining behind everything we do has always been towards behavior.
It's behavior.
And having better signals and being healthier, and that allowing you to lead towards performance, right? So
I believe so.
With that being said, do you think that there'll be an auto-regulation where at some point you don't need to do the lactate test every day and you can just tell
you know exactly where
you feel?
You'll know exactly where you are. But let's talk about performance for a second. So let's use Janina's example on the Airdyne. She's 7-8 minutes, remember? She was all over the place, hand not there. She's dying at 50-ish, like at 50. Right. Once I put her present and she had the validation of the end and everything, she spent the last 3 minutes like this.
Right.
Doing the 50, same as before, with half the energy spent. Isn't that performance?
Yeah.
What if your prediction decides the amount of energy you spend on an exercise?
Right.
And not the exercise itself.
Yeah.
Because the body is predictive. So that means that you have to do 100 reps.
Right.
If I spend 60% or 80% to do 100 reps at the same time, not faster or anything, isn't that increasing performance?
Right.
Because then the next workout is easier, or you know what I mean?
Well, looking at Rico, when you watched his last fight, where it was that tournament style where he signed up, but you could tell the dude was like, the stress levels were so low. The guy was just sparring and playing around.
He had no fear of the guys whatsoever.
So, I mean,
he's looking in, going like, "I'm going to eat you for lunch."
Yeah.
Like if you make it to 3 rounds, good for you.
That's performance right there, right?
Right, exactly. Right, and we all know we perform better like this, by the way.
So could that be a certain gauge of performance, the ability to understand the amount of energy expenditure?
But that's predictions versus observation.
Yeah.
That's the goal of life.
Yeah.
Right. So if you can't do that, that's a somatic error. Right. So that is performance. Yeah. It's exactly that.
In every aspect of life.
In every aspect of life is how much energy do I put for this?
Right.
Sometimes you mistake, but that means you don't have the skill because you didn't know the situation.
Right.
What is a craftsman? Yeah. As you go, you know exactly what is a 2, what is a 4, what is a 8, what is a 12.
Yeah.
And then find what that is for you, for that activity and everything, because Airdyne is not the treadmill.
Right.
But there's the training, is finding that skill.
Right.
But there's training is the behavior to do an 8 at an 8.
Right.
What if you do an 8 at a 12? Then how can you possibly have performance?
Yeah.
Right. So that means that your approach, your prediction of the workout is performance.
Right.
And so if we can gauge that correctly with a Q-1, then that's the key. So I have a few coaches that are testing, and it makes a huge difference that find the quit and -1 and play with that. Because then what you're going to do is you're going to realize that you don't need to freak out. And so you play with that. With that Q-1 seems to be the key, because then it's behavior, it's prediction. So we're not training, we're training the body, but we're training the prediction.
Right.
And we train the prediction based on the observation, that's true performance.
Yeah.
And so what I liked about the idea of lactate levels is it gives us an idea of the prediction that morning. Should you take a day off? Well, not from the observation, not from the body perspective, from the prediction perspective. Right. Where are you mentally? That will tell us. So you're spiking a lot. All right, so maybe we should do a steady cardio, maybe we should do this in December. That depends on other markers, on what your body has to say about it.
Right.
If you need a day off from other markers, for example, can be inflammation, there's other markers there for the observation.
Right.
But at least the lactate level at rest can give us a marker on the prediction.
Right.
Now, all we need is a marker on the observation side, markers on the observation side. And if he tells me the body needs a day off, good, then we'll do this in December to get you from a 6 to a 2 so that you can get a day off.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, you're programming a day off that you cannot take.
Yeah. Well, you see that all the time with certain functional fitnessers where it's supposed to be their resting. They're like,
that is not a rest day. And guess what? They feel like shit.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they probably have high levels of lactate that they can't even express into something. So the somatic error is massive. Imagine if you walk around at a 12, like Nicole was doing.
Yeah.
Then your body is probably going like, what the fuck am I doing?
Right.
Because I'm ready to go at all moments, and I never go.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not a good feeling.
Right.
By the way, Nicole hasn't been over 10 since the competition.
That's awesome.
But why? Because of Q-1. The key is that workout. And the key is not the workout. The key is the behavior, which is freak out right below. Yeah. Q-1, and play with that and see, and then you'll go like, and you'll feel your mind spiking. And the point is, no, you have to say no.
Right.
No, because that's not a 12, it's an 8. Come down. Give me what I need.
Yeah.
And that has been working really well in that sense. But you're right about something too, is eventually, once you understand the range you're in, then we don't need the stuff anymore.
Right. Yeah, then you'll have the...
Yeah, because it's Q-1. So quit can be 160 a rep, can be 165, 170. As you get better or you have a rough day or whatever, the Q will change.
Right.
And that's the point. It's the same thing for the time. They tell me how long do I do it? Q+1. Whenever you want to quit, +1. It's like, how do I know I want to quit? I'm like, exactly, you'll know.
That's a good question, isn't it?
That's a good question, isn't it?
It is your mind.
Right.
It is your body.
So, but you don't know. The problem is they want to know now what the time is to quit. I'm like, but that's the future.
Yeah.
You'll know when you're there.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what's stressing them out. It's like, so I have to wait to be there to know. Yeah. Exactly. Yes, you do. Because guess what? You can't predict the future.
Yeah.
You think you want control of something you don't have control of. So get in the stress at the Q-1 and you'll see at minute 12, you'll know if you're done or not. Then give me one more minute.
Right.
But that's also the lesson is you don't know right now because you're not at the Q-1. Right now, you're not doing shit. So your levels of lactate, for example, cannot determine what you're going to do there because your body is not there. Once you're there, the body will tell you. But until you're there, you're not there.
That's where I think my tests are always going to be faulty because I just keep thinking of the future of that fucking needle stinging me.
Yeah, there's always going to be, it's always going to go up. No matter what, it's going to go by at least 1 point. So we will have to lower the result by... No, you just have to find a way to cut or do something that doesn't stress you out. But if I come with a needle myself, like, you'll That works. That works. That worked better than me showing up with a needle where you go like, no.
Absolutely not.
But you see,
right? Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense.
Right. But remember when we said the nervous system supersedes energy systems? Well, there it is.
There it is. Yeah.
The prediction.
Yeah.
So that's why. Who was it? I remember I was doing the rope pull. How can I forget her name? She finished third at the game 2 years ago. Sorry.
Kristen Holte?
Kristen. Sorry, Kristen. Forgot your first name for a second. Like when her pecs were blowing up from the pec stick and she did the rope pull and her heart rate jumped at 170. That's in a way what I meant back then. Is like, that's not why. Why did this happen? Now I understand.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because the surprise, the stuff went,
yeah.
And so her prediction jumped up.
Yeah,
and
like
that
crazy.
got entire system shut down, even though it was not required for the work itself.
Right.
So performance and prediction are, by definition, linked.
Yeah. I have some cool ideas for the fighters before the fight. We could do the lactate.
Yeah, and see where they are, because then we know what to deal with. Because then we know where they are. But not, again, we're running into the problem of them telling us where they want to be instead of where they are.
Well, them giving you the answer you think you want to hear.
Exactly.
That they always come in every day and I'm like, how are you feeling? They're like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm like, your shoulder's not hurting? No. Is it sore? Is it? And then,
sore.
Yeah, and then like after a while they're like, well, it's been kind of achy and I can't really lift my arm up. I'm like,
So that counts as sore. Yeah.
But I mean, this is a great
There's
way
that too, by the way. There's also people wanting to.
Well, people that don't want to tell you that they're stressed out.
But they don't want to feel judged, which is probably what they stressed out in the first place, right? So coming and saying how you feel, it's like saying someone, you should relax.
Yeah.
That always works. That works so well every time, right?
Yeah.
And so, but again, like the levels of lactate at rest where there is no threat, don't talk to your kids first. Like when I say first thing in the morning, I really mean first thing in the morning. Then we'll see what you think your environment at that moment is like. And that'll tell us a lot as to where you are. So are you being stressed out because the fight is coming? So a fighter that normally is between a 1 and a 2, 3 weeks away from a fight, I would expect him to wake up in the morning between a 2 and a 3.
Right.
Because the fight is coming up and he's thinking about it.
For sure.
And if he's not, I'm going to wonder why.
Yeah.
I mean, if 2 days before the fight is at 1, I'd be like, dude, are you not taking this seriously?
Yeah.
Like I would expect the range to be very high because the prediction is I'm about to fight, which is true.
Yeah.
So I can't take him too far because now he's never going to be rested. But you could see like how we could play with it.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to look at the lactate in the morning at rest as a measure of the prediction. It's like, what environment are you in right now? Not the environment that is actually your environment, the environment that you're creating to be. And perception creates reality in that sense.
Yeah.
So of the prediction. The environment that you're predicting will tell us a lot about where you are. And as you've seen, for a lot of them, for example, it was depression and not anxiety.
Yeah.
They were anxious about being depressed.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you define that? It's true, by the way. It's like, I feel anxious. Well, that's true. But that's because you're depressed.
Yeah.
Which is the only thing that matters to us, because then that means no yoga, no meditation, no steady cardio. It's Q-1 cardio hard, it's interval training, it's lifting weights, it's burn the questions.
Right. Yeah. 100%.
So that changes the training completely suddenly.
Yeah.
Right. And on the sheet, it was right there. Yoga crashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every time.
That's interesting. Yeah. That explains now.
Yeah.
But and now we have a measure where you go, oh. And again, as a side effect, what I love is people being able to go like, it's not in my head. It's right here. That has helped a lot.
I think that for those people, they like the crash though, because it makes them not feel anxious about being in the freeze. Right? So I mean, like,
maybe they felt they did enough. I'm actually tired. Yeah, you're not tired.
But you're not tired. You've been tired. Yeah.
Yeah. That's not the same.
Yeah.
I feel tired sometimes, but now I can tell you're not tired, dude. You're in freeze.
You're in freeze,
You know how I know the difference? Is I get here. If this gets to me,
then
that's a freeze. That's not tired. When I'm tired, my body has very specific reactions, and I notice every time I'm exhausted, it's here. Right. That's a freeze mode.
Yeah.
Now I can feel it. My eyes are like that. Like, no. So I understand why the 20-minute nap now has nothing to do with me being tired. It's to shut off.
Right.
It's too much of the world.
Yeah.
Like I'm overstimulated. It's too much of the world. I need 30 minutes by myself, guys.
Right.
Like, and so I just sleep, come back, and I'm like, oh, I'm good. It's because I could just shut off for a while.
Yeah, and you're allowed to be in the freeze. Can go into that.
Of course, I'm not. Yes,
there needs to be a balance.
And by the
between
way,
all four,
you're supposed to be anxious.
Yeah.
Like again, like a guy before the fight, 9 months with Deya, your lactate levels were probably high, as they should be. You're about to have a kid, first one, getting, like some birth don't go well. You're supposed to be like, I need to be ready. Well, because at any moment you're supposed to take Deya to the hospital. Shit happens. So you suppose that's a correct prediction, by the way.
Yeah.
So it's rough because nothing happens. So you're like this, but it's not. There's no good and bad. Again, there's only function.
Right.
But that will at least give us an overall idea of where they are. Yeah, and yes, you're right. Sometimes freeze is necessary.
Yeah, for sure.
Freeze is also sometimes going like, hey, chill, look at your life. What do we want?
Right. Yeah.
That's an important skill. Right, but that's what you see. People that had a major change in their lives, where the environment changed completely, within 2-3 months, they can get stuck in freeze because for 3 months, they're like, what do I want? Where am I going?
Right.
That's a hard question sometimes, right? And later in life, it's a very hard question. And so you can get stuck there, though.
Yeah.
And where doing too much meditation, too much like what do I want, can actually dysregulate the system itself. Because
beat you deeper in the hole.
Because you still have to fucking live in the world.
Well, and I think that's a big one, right? Is a lot of people aren't living in the world. I mean, they're just kind of going by, right? So we talk about the point of present, and even when they're doing meditation, it's still an outer. They say it's an outer body experience, which is not the point.
That's not the point.
Like
they're supposed to be connected, not disconnected.
Always exactly.
And I've done that myself with the burner questions,
Yeah.
where I took myself out of the world, where I could just be me. But the problem is, yes, it's me, but it's not me into the world. It's just me within myself.
Right.
And I overdone that, which led me to freeze because it's the disconnect with the world.
Yeah.
That's why the 6 sets are working so well for me right now, because it's like, no, it's not enough to be you. You have to be you in the world.
Yeah.
It's like, really? Yes, really. So if the world is a scary place,
then
you could see how you could not want to do 6 sets,
Yeah.
and then you do 4 instead. Know what I mean,
Right.
it's like, no, it's 5 and 6, because
Let's
that's where the skill comes in. That's when earning the work comes in. Is it scary? Yes, it is. That's why I'm have to kick my own ass to not take too long in between sets. Has nothing to do with rest. I'm rested. It's me going like this because it's like, no, stay in the world, do the work.
Right.
That is not something mentally I'm comfortable with. That is the opposite of what I've done, which is explode and study and find the stuff in my head, but always within my inner world. And suddenly I have to develop that connection between the inner world to the outer world. That is not simple.
Right.
And people can have the reverse issue of suddenly they have to look inside and they don't know what they're looking at.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the burner questions, but they can't do it because they're like, what am I looking for? Like,
That's
exactly.
a very good question.
That's a very good question, but you need to open that gate.
Yeah.
Right. And when you look inside, you might not always see, like what you see. I don't always like what I see, and that's the point. I see a voice that tells me to quit, and I'm like, no, this is my dominion, and I will be the master of it. Like, the master of my fate. It's the same idea, but now I have to do that toward the world, where it's like, of course, the world is not what I want, but some of it is. And I'll shape it so that I can, the part that I can shape, I will shape.
I like it.
And that's really how I look at the 5th and 6th sets now, is that.
Right.
It's like, what world do I want to live in? The world where I do 5 and 6 sets? All right, well, let's do this.
Got it.
So, but now I come to the gym every time, I don't care what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do is shape the world into what I want. And not and shape myself into the world.
Yeah.
Because the world cannot be shaped in that sense. But, like it's my behavior toward the world, and that's what I train. And so I want to come to the gym every day. Because I'm like, doesn't matter if you're sore. Who cares?
Right.
You're gonna do the 5th and 6th sets. So I get here like this way. This morning she was, like, hey, pay attention to me. I'm like, I'm training. Because now it's not about lifting weight. It's the 5th and 6th sets. So the first 4 sets, I blast myself, but I can't wait to be to the 5th. Because I'm like, now the work starts.
Yeah.
And now it's behavior, and it makes it so much better to train.
I like it.
So
keep it on the predictive side.
Right. So interesting idea. So we're starting that with all the coaches.
Yeah.
Like the levels of lactate in the morning, and we're going to start to play with training based on that, with the observation side of what do we want for the day.
Yeah. And so if you want to be a part of that, take the online seminar, come to an in-person seminar, join the mentoring program.
And then we have a group just for that, where we're going to develop that free energy training principle. like how to take those measures of the prediction versus the markers of observation, and how do we train based on behavior.
Forward. Yeah, I love it.
That's really cool.
That's going to be sick.
Yeah, that's going to be this year.
I like it.
That's all I'm doing this year.
Beautiful, guys. Have a good one. Take care. Bye.